What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-host, Colin Alcaves. Today, it's time for our yearly Lafreniere discussion. We do it every offseason, talking about, is the kid finally going to break out, or are we pushing the end of the line here? And then I will say, your definition of breakout might differ than mine or Colin's. He did improve quite a bit a couple seasons ago. He hit that 57-point mark 2 years ago, but then he kind of slumped back down to 45 last year. So we saw glimmers of hope, but then we kind of sank back down a little bit. So really, it's up to you. And I don't know if you want to call it a breakout or unless you say he's already broken out. Point is, the main point of this episode is discussing Lafreniere and how we think he's going to perform this upcoming season. So we're going to dive right into that. But before we do, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification. Be sure to leave your thoughts and your predictions down in the comment section below. And be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. But Colin, my friend, the reason we haven't recorded in a couple days is because you just went on a nice vacation. Tell me about that. How was it?
It was good. It was good. I went down to Florida. I was in your neck of the woods. I went to Universal with my family. It was good. Good to be back, though. I got a week, and then I'm going away for another weekend. I'll be at the Clemson LSU game. Go Tigers. Clemson.
Go Tigers LSU.
Have to specify. But yeah, no, good to be back. Good to be talking some Rangers. I know this is a topic that you've been excited about. And we tried to link up when I was in Florida, but the times just weren't working out for either of us. So excited to finally get to this topic and give a little breakdown on what we're thinking about Laf.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm just going to hop in really quick. Because, I feel like we've mentioned it a few times on this channel. Obviously, we're both Tigers fans. There's different schools. You're go Clemson, I'm go LSU. I'm curious to ask the chat, though. Anyone watching, if you're big into college sports, we have a couple big schools up there in New York, but I feel like a majority of people I know are fans of other schools elsewhere, out of state. So, while I want you to leave your thoughts in the comments about the topic of today's episode, at the end of your comment, why don't you throw in whatever school you're a fan of now that college sports is about to be kicking back off. So that should be an interesting conversation starter too. But anyways, the video, Alexis Lafreniere, here's what I think, okay? We talked about the lines a little bit before we hit record, who's he going to play with? And I think we were both in agreement that we're probably going to see the same line as last year. We're going to see Panarin and Trocheck and Lafreniere all playing together, getting the most minutes on the team, most likely. So for the sake of the discussion, let's just run with that. That idea that Mike Sullivan's going to come in, he's going to say, hey, whatever that other guy was doing worked with that line, so I'm going to keep them together. Because if we start speculating, what if he plays with Miko? What if he plays with Miller? And it's going to get a little hectic, and we're going to have like a 6-hour-long episode. And we don't do that here on Fireside Rangers. We keep it nice, short, and to the point. So for the sake of the discussion, imagine the line is Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere. And personally, I think Lafreniere's performance banks entirely on the performance of the other two. I think Lafreniere on his own, at least at this point in his career, he's not going to be the make or break player on the line. I think if he's playing really, really well, but Panarin and Trocheck are also still in a slump from last year, I don't really see Lafreniere's ceiling being that high. He's not the type of guy that's going to carry a old Panarin and a slow Trocheck to higher point totals. I think it's going to be the opposite. I think if Panarin returns to form and he's on pace for at least a 90 to 100 point season, that's going to boost Lafreniere as well. Trocheck, on the other hand, while he's good for maybe 50, 60 points in a good season at this point, if he's playing at that level, sure, that'll help too, but it's really not his point totals that I'm going to see boosting Lafreniere. It's just his overall style of play. The defensive aspects in Trocheck's game will allow more creativity from Lafreniere to flow, and obviously the faceoffs are a big factor. The more faceoffs you win, more puck possession you have, more points Lafreniere can score. I really think as long as Panarin and Trocheck are playing good, or at least better than last year, we can see a significant improvement from Lafreniere. Last year, 45 points, not very good, especially from a guy who was first overall back in 2020. I'm thinking as long as the unit, that top line, second line, however you may call it, plays good, I can see Lafreniere hitting somewhere between 65, 75 points, probably somewhere in that 70 range. I know I ran the numbers a little bit before we hit record. That would require Lafreniere to average about 0.85 points per game. And when you're playing with a guy like Panarin, and assuming Lafreniere is going to get more opportunities on the power play now that Chris Kreider's gone, I can most certainly see him hitting that margin of 0.85 points per game. And as long as he plays a full 82-game season, hopefully, fingers crossed, I can see it happening. 70. If Panarin goes crazy and he's on like 120, 130 point pace season, you got to assume Lafreniere is going to be getting a lot of those assists, especially on the power play. Maybe he can push for 80, 85, but I think realistically, we're looking between 65 to 75 for the kid. And I'd be happy with that. He's never going to be a McDavid type of first overall, but he's also not going to be who's the guy the Oilers drafted that was
Yakupov?
He's not going to be a Yakupov type of first overall player either. He's going to be solid. He's going to have 60 to 70 points as long as, like I said, the unit plays good. So that's really my big take of the episode. This isn't really, is Lafreniere going to break out? It's just, is that entire line going to return to form? Because I think it's all cohesive. It all flows together. So that's my monologue. I'm done for the app. You finish it off. Go ahead.
I'll say I only disagree with you on one thing. I don't think that
coming back out because I refuse to disagree with.
I don't think that he can't drive offense on his own and can't be the guy to carry a line. Because if you look back at the Eastern Conference Finals against the Panthers, when Trocheck and Panarin, who were red hot going into that series, were absolutely shut down, who started scoring all those goals? I mean, Lafreniere had one of his best goals on Bobrovsky, where he made a nice move, toe drag, moved to the backhand, and then scorpion kicked Bobrovsky on his way down. One of the best goals I've seen in the playoffs outside of what Marchand was doing.
It was a remarkable goal. I will give you that.
So I think, and also you have to keep in mind too, the stereotypical first overall pick is going to get top 6 minutes right off the rip, right? So Lafreniere only started getting top 6 minutes 2 seasons ago. He had 57 points in 82 games, and then he had his sophomore slump, which would have been 45, which was 45 and 82 in a season where the whole team struggled. He only had 12 less points as the season prior. I think you'll see a resurgence. This will be his 3rd season in the top 6, where, like I said, most players would have already been there for their first 3 seasons. Going into his 6th season will be his 3rd year in the top 6. I think you're going to see a big step from him in terms of maturity and confidence. I think that, again, as I've mentioned in every episode, a true coaching, or one of the true coaches in the league with a solid scheme will definitely help him out tremendously as well. Because you've seen offensive-minded players thrive under a guy like Mike Sullivan, whether that be Brian Rust or obviously Crosby and Malkin, who were doing it long before he was there. But then you have what's his name, who's on the Lightning now? I see his face. Jake Gensel. There's a laundry list of players who have thrived offensively over there, and so I think this for me, I don't really count. I say I don't count. Obviously, they do count. He did play them. But those first 3 seasons where he's getting little to no ice time, punished by coaches for doing anything creative on that 3rd line without any true real line mates, no shade to Kakko or Hedl, but they weren't there yet. And he had those glimpses in those first 3 seasons. But I think you can only really start judging him as a full-blown player once you start giving him the top 6 minutes that a first overall player deserves. It's hard to get anything going as any sort of prospect in the bottom 6, especially in a sheltered, limited role, as all those coaches were giving him, whether that was Gallant or Laviolette kind of gave him the big break, but Gallant refused to move him up whatsoever. He did not trust kids at all, and they were constantly down in the lineup, which is part of the reason why he's gone. But now I digress to why I think he's going to be better this year. Obviously, as I said, he's had his time in the top 6 now. You got to expect a resurgence from that line, as you mentioned. I think it will be better. He had his most giveaways last season and his second least takeaways last season. I think that played a big role. I think you can expect to see those numbers change a little bit. And like you said, Panarin obviously is a catalyst on that line. Now, while I think Lafreniere can play on his own, having another guy on the other wing definitely makes it a lot easier for him. Takes the pressure off him and the eyes onto Panarin, gives him a little bit more time and space. So I think that will just lead to more and more opportunities. And as he continues to play and gather more confidence, as we saw in those playoffs, he could be a spark plug for this team. So I think that you need to just stay the course with him. Obviously, year 1 of 7 of his contract, he's going to want to be worth every penny of that to the team, and he knows that the window is definitely coming to a close here quickly. And before long, we might be part of another longer retool. So I think while the window's open, he knows that he has to strike while the iron's hot, and I think you can expect a big bounce back year from him. He's only 23 years old, so he's younger than both of us. I think, or maybe he's your age, but he's still very, very young.
My age is a mystery. No one really knows the true age.
But I don't want to hear the word bust thrown around at all when it comes to Lafreniere or anything like that. I think that he's got a long career ahead of him, and I think that, what was it? It was 57 points 2 seasons ago and 45 points in a really, really, really bad year for the Rangers. I think even being able to put up that many points in a year where the team was so bad is impressive. So, like I said, sky's the limit for this kid. I think that there's a ton of upside with him. He can play the left or the right. There's a lot of different places he can play. We said if he was to play on that line, I'd probably put him in the 70, 75-point range. I think that this is the year where he finally takes that next step. I know we've been saying that forever and ever. But if you look at the trajectory next
year, don't worry.
If you look at the trajectory for most players, they usually have a decent first year, a sophomore slump, and then a really good third year, and that's all in the top 6. So based on those projections on other players who have been taken around his number, getting top 6 minutes when he finally gets them, we saw the solid year. We saw the slump. I mean, I'm just saying, it looks like he's poised for a better year, and probably statistically his best year so far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. And, so just go back to your counterpoint on mine. I don't want to make it seem like I'm disrespecting the kid. Obviously, he's extremely talented, better hockey player than I'll ever be, or either of us for that matter. I'm going to disrespect you in that one too.
Fair enough.
I'm much better than Colin. I think the point I'm trying to make, because look, you look back at that playoff run, conference finals, Lafreniere did step up and he did make an impact when his line mates were not playing at the top of their game. I just look at it from like an overall general view. Like if Panarin and Trocheck played like how they did during that series across an 82-game season, I don't think Lafreniere is necessarily going to be bad. I just think that lowers his point ceiling quite significantly. He's not going to elevate Panarin back to his game kind of the same way that like Panarin would be able to, like how Panarin elevated he who shall not be named to some way too high point totals, and then now he's making a lot of money on a really bad team. But anyways, we'll see what Lafreniere is cooking up. Obviously training camp, everything, preseason, it's starting soon. We're going to get some glimpses into what he's been working on. I know I've personally gotten involved. I'm cooking something up too. So we'll have to see how it all plays out in the future, but trust we have some gears in motion for Lafreniere. But that does about wrap up today's episode of Fireside Rangers. So if you guys did enjoy, be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell to miss notification. As always, leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. One final note I want to point out, just because I forgot to in the intro, I am eating pizza for dinner tonight, but I, the respectful host of this show, chose to wait until after and did not eat pizza on camera.
What a good guy. Really a stand-up citizen you are.
I can't say the same for some other people on this channel. But anyways, if you I don't remember where I was in the outro. Something about subscribing, comment section, social media platforms, but most importantly, have a good one. And
let's go Rangers.